Good morning, gang. Happy Tuesday morning. Well, not to anybody's surprise, we had more shootings yesterday. That shouldn't shock anybody. The issue that we get is what are we going to do to prevent it, right? What are we going to do to stop this ridiculous amount of crime that we have in this country? And people can say, oh, it's because of the economy. You could be AOC. Oh, people can't afford to buy food, so therefore they're stealing it. And they think that's the answer. It's like, oh, well, let's throw more money at people. That will solve the problem. No, okay. This is a cultural issue, not an economic issue. The accepted culture in a lot of cities, primarily, okay? I mean, sure, there's the occasional shooting outside of a metropolitan area, but the problem is it's now been deemed normal, if you will, for shootings, for people to spray bullets out of cars and drive-bys or whatever. Violence has become accepted. And so we get to the point of what do we do? Now you look at Washington, D.C. this week, and we are now starting to experience the federal government's federalization of the city police force, of them calling in the military, having troops, with now having arrest powers in Washington, D.C., having federal cops assisting the D.C. Metro Police. Okay, technically, D.C. is federal land. It's not a state. There's nothing, it's federal land. So the federalization of the police force in there is accepted. Should be, okay? It's the city is basically overseen by Congress. No problem. We've had a bunch of arrests. Good. They're cleaning up homeless camps. Good. Make the city safer for residents, visitors, politicians and their staff, all of who've been attacked. Some killed. But then you get, how do we expand this? Now, be it typical Trump bluster, a threat, or be it something actual, this is what we have to concern ourselves with. There was another shooting in Chicago yesterday, and somebody went in and robbed a store, killed the person working in the store. And the response out of the White House was, maybe it's time to federalize Chicago. Now, there is no doubt in anybody's mind that Chicago is one of the most dangerous cities in the country. All right, you can mix it with Baltimore, you can mix it with St. Louis, you can mix it with Washington, D.C. It's in there as a place you certainly don't go at night, and you're afraid to go during the day. I don't care if you're on the south side. I don't care if you're on the north side. All right, it doesn't matter. Chicago has gotten very dangerous. The gangs, the criminals, the cartels, and the mob run Chicago, not the illustrious Brandon Johnson, I can't believe we've got a mayor in Chicago who's worse than Lori Lightfoot, but we do. Okay. So Trump said yesterday that he's going to consider federalizing the police force in Chicago. I want you to watch real quick what Governor J.B. Pritzker, fat ass, what his response was.
The government does not have a right to send soldiers into American cities for the purpose of, well, for any purpose really, but specifically to fight crime. The Nazis in Germany in the 30s tore down a constitutional republic in just 53 days. It does not take much, frankly, and we have a president who seems hell-bent on doing just that.
Now, far be it from me to agree with some fat buffoon, but the first half of what J.B. Pritzker said is correct, all right? That the federal government does not have the right to go in and federalize the police department of a city. That is correct. The second part is the typical Democrat propaganda, name-calling crap. Oh, it's what the Nazis did, yada, yada, yada. I hate to tell you this, dumbass, but the fascist party is you, okay? You just don't understand the definition of it, okay? But Pritzker's right that the federal government does not have the right. We are not supposed to send troops to active duty troops into or onto American soil to prevent crime. All right, that's against the law. That is reserved for the National Guard, which each state has its own National Guard, which is controlled by the governors of those states. Now, the president can federalize the National Guard, but then by definition, that makes them federal troops. And then at that point, they are, even though assigned to a National Guard unit, they are technically active duty. So you really get into this iffy. But we've seen troops in L.A. about the illegals in ICE. Now we've seen troops in Washington, D.C. trying to combat crime. What are we getting? This is a slippery slope. Because personally, I don't want military running all over the country. We shouldn't have to have that. We should not have to have, basically what this is going to, face it guys, is martial law, okay, where we're going to get to the point, at least in certain areas right now, where you may have checkpoints. You have to go through, you have to show your papers to travel across Washington, D.C., or travel across Chicago, if this comes down. Now, on the other side of it, you have to remember this. The oath we all took was to defend this country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Okay? So now you get into that. I think we can consider these gangbangers, these cartels, all this sort of stuff, domestic enemies. People in the United States have a right to live their life in peace, not in fear, not under threats of anybody, okay? Not the cartels, the gangs, the government. We have freedom of movement in this country. You can drive from Colorado to Missouri, no problem. You're crossing state lines, you don't have to stop. You just, welcome to Kansas, and off through you go. But where does it end? What needs to be done? What's going to happen? The mayors, the governors of these crime-ridden cesspools that are blue cities aren't doing anything about it. They're more interested in hiding the crime numbers and jawboning and talking all over the place about, oh, you need to vote for me because I'm going to get rid of crime, and crime goes up. Something's got to change. And are we ready for it? Now, I don't live in the city, but Knoxville's blue. Okay. don't have the crime like Chicago does, but again, we're not the size city it is. Right? But what happens when that starts spreading? If I want to go into Knoxville, or you live in the suburbs of Chicago and you want to go into the city, why, I have no idea. But you have the right to do that. But do you really want to take your life into your own hands by doing it? Where's the trade-off we make? Well, I want to go to a Cubs game. Okay, it's the north side of town. It's safer of the two sides. Okay, but you want to go down Lakeshore Drive to get there. Maybe you get stopped by the military. Like traffic isn't bad enough in Chicago already. Where are you going, sir? Where are you coming from, sir? I mean, this isn't like a DUI checkpoint, right? This is, I want to know all the information about your personal life, what you're doing. Do you have any weapons on you, sir? Right? Okay. Imagine the gridlock you get to the point where people go, it's not worth it. I'm not driving into town for a ball game and it's going to take me 6 hours to make a 10-mile trip because I've got to go through all the traffic jams from all the checkpoints. But then where does it go from there? You're trying to get to work and all this happens. Imagine, again, being in Chicago and you're taking the trains, taking the Burlington or whatever into the city. And there's armed people walking through the cars, looking at everybody, checking you out. You go back to the 1970s and the Guardian Angels in New York, walking through the subway, checking everybody out. Okay? That gets a little scary under your skin. Because why are they allowed to do it and I'm not? What if they're a little too gung-ho about doing their job? What if I look at them wrong? And this is when you start getting back into the Soviet era or something like that. Everybody just having their head down, don't make eye contact with anybody because it can get you hurt. Just leave it at that. I don't want to live under martial law. I don't live in Chicago. I don't live in D.C., so at the moment I'm okay. But what happens if this starts to take hold? Because once it's done in one place, then it's easier to do the second place and the third and the fourth and the fifth. It gets easier and easier and easier, right? And then all of a sudden, we're all involved in it. And at that point, we've lost our country. I'm all for taking a bite out of crime, but not when it comes to the point of stepping on the freedoms that law-abiding citizens have. You need to get rid of the criminals, every one of them. No question. Build more jails. Stop this cashless bail bullshit. Stop this slap on the wrist stuff or desk tickets or anything. Start throwing these people in the clink and leaving them there. Oh, you shot a clerk as you were robbing a store? That's mandatory life in prison. Good. No question. We have you on tape. You're guilty. Goodbye. You are never coming out. No probation, no parole, no nothing. You're done. And then start taking away all the rights, if you will, in prison. I mean, these guys in jail now, they get internet time, they watch football on Sunday. Some of them have better living conditions in prison than they did on the streets. Okay? That needs to end. Here's your concrete bed, here's your pillow, here's your 3 meals a day, and other than that, 23 hours a day you spend in your cell. You want to read a book? Here's the Bible. Other than that, you get Nothing. Stop making prison a country club and start making it a punishment. That might help. People bitch all the time about, oh, prisons cost us money. What would you rather do? Spend a couple extra bucks of taxes or die? This is it. We need to build more prisons. We need to bring back insane asylums. And we need to start locking up the bad guys so the good guys can have the life that they should have that was promised to them 250 years ago when the rest of the United States said F you to Britain. We're doing it on our own. No martial law. But damned if these governors don't start doing something soon. That's where we're heading. Pinball out.